right, my youngest participant ever. I like that. Oh, Lord, that is so great. Good morning.
Good morning.
So we're running behind, and I really want to thank you all for being here. You know, I really respect your investment in time, and I don't take that lightly. And I have a couple really important things that I'm hoping to share throughout this event. The first one has to do with courageous intimacy, really a stepping into a very exciting place in our world today, and especially in relationship with not just our loved ones, but all people in our lives. So hopefully we'll have a chance to play with that and experience a bit of that. And I know you've had an experience of this before, but we're going to go deeper with it. And the other is to expose you to genetic energetics, which is a science that's only been around for 40 years. It's a very young one. But it is looking at something that really no one's ever looked at before around relationships. And so it adds a dimension of understanding that's really exciting. Really, really exciting. So I want to tell you, my goal is to tell you some stories and share some metaphors, do a little interaction, and then share what genetic energetics is. How many people actually had a chance to run the reports? Cool. So if you didn't, it's totally cool. Totally cool, and you can run them anytime, and you can run as many of them as you want. They're free. So it's our goal is for everybody on the planet to know what this is about. So imagine that we're all a close group of friends, and one of our best friends is having surgery today. And she asked us to come wait in the waiting room because she just wanted to have the support of her friends, right? Minor surgery. And so we go, we're all pretty elevated because we're together with our friends and we're all, in good spirits. And an hour goes by, and it's supposed to be about an hour and a half long surgery. And hour goes by, and we're still, just connecting because we don't always see each other very often. And about an hour and a half goes by. Now it gets to 2 hours. We're going, wow, well, it's a hospital. Things get packed up. Things take longer than expected. 3 hours goes by, and we're now kind of wondering, what's happening here. Because it's supposed to be just a minor surgery. About another 15 or 20 minutes goes by, and we look down the hallway, we see the doctor coming, and the doctor doesn't have a look on his face like he's happy. In fact, he's very concerned. And he walks out, and he says to us, he goes, "We lost her. We lost her." We're in shock. This is a minor surgery. How did it happen? We're asking, how did this happen? He says, well, she told us her blood type, and we had to give her a blood transfusion, and it was incorrect. It wasn't the wrong blood type. And she had impact from this, and we couldn't revive her. We're stunned. Now, would this really ever happen in a hospital today? Not likely. We have a nurse right here. She's going, no. It might happen, but it's really unlikely, right? It's really, really unlikely. But it's fascinating because, we trust things like blood type when we go into a hospital, but we do relationship surgery every day, and we don't know the blood type. We don't know the blood type. And by relationship surgery, I mean we interact with someone thinking that we know exactly how to deal with the situation, right? And let's just fix it and reorient it and whatever we need to do so that we can connect deeper. But we have some missing pieces of information. So genetic energetics, which I'm going to tell you more about as our time passes this morning, is the blood type. It literally is an energetic signature that's genetic. You had it since birth. So when I asked you to fill out the forms, We ask for your birth date, and we ask for your opposite gender biological parent's birth date. And those two pieces are all that we need to be able to determine this frequency. So let me kind of give you a little real life application about how this works. I'm sitting here on a three-legged stool. Right? So if we think about relationships, most of us make our decisions about who we want to be in relationship with kind of based on two legs, right? One leg is physical. So, we look at the person and we go, she looks pretty good. That's what I'm talking about. I like that, right? And physical is also proximity, right? It's like, where do they live? Is this going to be a long distance relationship? Is this someone I get to have physical contact with or not? Is height, shape, size, all of us make decisions about who we want to spend time with and encounter based to some degree on physical elements. I mean, if we're even in business or in sports, imagine if you're riding a horse, thoroughbreds, you're not going to weigh 250 pounds. That's a linebacker, right? So you need someone that's 95 pounds. So one leg is the physical one. We're always using that. The second leg, this one back here, that's emotional. That really is everything that we know about ourselves and about each other, about when we look at how we were raised. What are our beliefs? What are our experiences? What are our desires? What is it that is most important to us in our lives that we really want to encounter? If we're meeting someone and we're considering a relationship and the woman wants to have a child and the man goes, I don't want kids, right? That's kind of a mismatch. But we're checking that out. That's what we do. We check those things out. And we're now basing our relationship, how much we're going to want to encounter this person, based on two things. First, the physical, and then everything we can find out about them or they can tell us. And this is everything, like, their belief systems, their challenges, what they've experienced in life, how many times they've been married, do they have kids before, and we can go on and on and on. Now, based on those things, we can go, wow, this is amazing. You want kids, I want kids. You're a nurse, I'm a doctor. Wow, we're in the same profession. My gosh, we have the same background, we have the same religious beliefs. And you're beautiful, and I love this connection. And we go into relationship sitting on this three-legged stool, but with only two legs. So everything's fine as long as we're kind of balancing here, right? Everything is going well. But eventually something happens and bam, it knocks us over, right? And what do we do when we have an argument or something, painful happens? We kind of get up and we brush ourselves off and go, God, I'm sorry, honey. I didn't mean to do that. I need to do some work on this. I'll fix it. See if I can figure out what happened. And we get into a conversation about that, and then we go back into our relationship still on these two legs. Again, kind of riding this thing like a bicycle. A bike's pretty cool when you're still moving, but has anybody ever been clipped into a bike and you get to a place where you stop and you forget to take your foot out of the clips, and next thing you know you're on your side? Yeah, it hurts and it's embarrassing too. So the challenge here is that we are missing this third leg. And this third leg, I'm going to screw back in here, hopefully. This third leg is energetics. So with this, what's really cool about this is that a three-legged stool with three legs, you could do handstands on this thing, right? And if you were really good at acro yoga, you could probably do all kinds of cool things on this. But you have a solid foundation. It's a missing piece that allows us to understand why some of the things that we experience in our relationships with each other work really well and others are challenging. I'm going to sit down. Can you point that down? So genetic energetics is a typology. Kind of like human design, like astrology, like numerology. like gene keys. It's a typology. And there's lots of them out there. There's lots of assessment programs like Myers-Briggs and Persogenics, all kinds of personality assessments. They're all very valuable. So I'm saying that, bringing that up now, because there's a little double-edged sword piece that I want to bring up. As a typology, it's really easy to go, well, I'm this and you're that, right? And so because I'm this and you're that, you're going to behave that way, and it's going to be tough for us to connect with each other. So that would be a really cruel thing to do to someone if you really didn't know them yet and you project on them their behavior, wouldn't it? Okay. Do we do that sometimes as human beings? Yeah, a lot. So I'm going to introduce you to a very powerful, what I consider one of the most powerful typologies on this planet. And at the same time, I'm going to say, don't use it to project on someone. Use it as a way of understanding, acknowledging, honoring, respecting, and really loving a person. Because there's people in our lives that show up for all kinds of reasons. And they're not always going to be a perfect match. I mean, who here has met someone and then gone to your astrologist, told her or him about the person you met, and they go, oh, those two signs don't get along? No. Anybody have that experience? Yeah. A lot of folks, right? And so when I first was introduced to this whole material, this is almost a decade ago, I thought it was rather a little wacky, but it was also extremely accurate. And I was trying to figure out just, what is this exactly? Because the person asked me for only 2 pieces of information. And some of you know this, all we asked for was your birth date and your parents. It's like, okay, that's not enough information, to tell me something really pertinent. And so I spent 2 years interviewing couples, over 1,000 couples, using this to see how accurate it was. And in the 2 years, it was never, ever wrong. Not once. It was pretty weird. And it kind of set me back, because at the beginning what would happen is I'd call my friends, I'd call people I was working with, and I said, can I get your birth dates? I want to interview you guys and talk to you. And then I started to extend out from there. And every once in a while I'd call someone up and they'd give me their birth dates, and we didn't have it as automated then as now. And so I'd have to go back and get the information, and I go, I really like these people. I hope that they're a perfect match. Perfect match would have been someone that has exactly the same energetic profile as their partner. That was the definition of a perfect match. And I go, God, I hope they're a perfect match. They're a perfect match. And then I get it back, and they were an absolute imperfect match. They were like totally different from each other. And I go, I don't want to tell them that. Because the belief system that I was fed at the time is that if you weren't a perfect match, that was a relationship that wasn't going to work. Now, that is projecting, and that's really dangerous, right? So my background is in psychology and social anthropology, and I've been doing coaching and therapeutic work for over 3 decades. And so, just out of not wanting to say something that was really mean to people, I would tell them what their profile was, and then I'd say, but here's the things you can do to really understand each other. And I was figuring this out kind of as I was going, and what ended up happening is about a year or 2 later, I started to get calls. And I'd get letters, and one of the letters that really just surprised me so much was from a couple that they had just got married. Actually, they got married about 6 months earlier. They just had a baby. So they had a baby, they just got married, they were a total mismatch with each other. And what they said is, you totally saved our relationship. So this information, having this, just relieved us of so many questions that we have. So this brings us to the subject of belief systems. It's our beliefs that really control what we decide and how we're going to interact with people. Unless we're 100% present in this moment, right? If we're 100% present in this moment and we can divorce ourselves from anything in the past, like anything and everything, and we can divorce ourselves from any expectations and desires in the future, that's a really cool place to be. In fact, I'll share this, love only exists in this place. It's the only place it exists. Love from yesterday, or love as you defined it in the past, that's not love, that's just a projection of love, right? That's an expectation, it's desire. You know, you had this, I have this incredible feeling, I just can't believe how filled up I want to be that way all the time. And then you go to your partner and you go, make me feel that way again. Well, it doesn't work that way. Because that's not love, that's trying to recreate something from the past, and the past is history. Or make me feel that way again because I just felt so safe and so secure. Please do that for me. That's not love. That's a projection into the future saying, do this for me so I can have this so I'll feel comfortable now. Right? But in this very precious present, and you can actually see it more in right here in a child than any place else when a parent looks into the eyes of their child, and that's just unquestionable, undeniable love, right? There's not like, are you going to poop? You know? Are you going to grow up to be a pain in the ass? No, at that moment, and that child's there in your hands and you're looking at them, and you know, and can they borrow your child sometime today to try it out? You know, that's love. If we can be in that place with our partners, with our friends, with those people that we're interacting with all the time, and I'm not talking about just romantic spaces, I'm talking about business, I'm talking about any kind of interaction. If you can come from a loving place in the present, it is miraculous what happens. So what prevents that from taking place? Why aren't we always in the present? Anybody?
Looking in the past, so you project into the future.
Yeah, definitely past experiences. So we've all known people that have had some kind of traumatic experience in the past, or we've had one, and it's still present for us, or it feels present for us, right? Is it really present? Now some people will argue this and go, hell yes, it's present. You know, I was abused. My house burned down. I'm scared shitless of being in a house that can burn down. That's very present right now. You know, and that's kind of, when you hear that, you go, wow, that is present for you right now. But the only reason why it is present in that moment, in this moment, is that you brought it here with you and decided that the context you're going to put around it made it present in this moment, right? So, a fun little thing to know is that none of us are broken. None of us are damaged. None of us. We've had experiences for sure that have been difficult in our lives. Many of us have been married or in relationships before, and those relationships were nightmares. Right? Or they pressed us to do some conversions, some changes in our lives that we absolutely needed to do. And it was hard fucking work. Right? But the key, though, is that we need to leave those things behind. And we need not to bring with us belief systems that get in the way of us showing up in this precious present for those people that we want to encounter. So the reason why genetic energetics became so powerful for me as a therapist is that I realized I had a tool that busted stories faster than anything I'd ever dealt with before. And by stories, I mean the story like I'm not a good lover, I'm a bad husband, I'm not a good father, I'm not a good businessman, I can't keep a job. Every job I get into, I'm in it for a while and then I get bored, so I'm a failure. I guess I just need to go work for someone. I mean, can you hear this wheel, right? I didn't do well in my last relationship, and gosh, he cheated on me. I don't want a cheater, right? So I want to avoid someone that's emotionally unavailable. Well, you all heard these, right? If it's not out of your mouth, it's been some friend or someone who's talked to you about it. all of these are belief systems that are based on an experience that may be really easily defined. So this is where genetic energetics comes in. Not as the end all to be all, but as a way of understanding what may have been some of the challenges. So for example, those people that ran reports here, there's a lot of folks that have a modifier in our system. It's called a modifier that's called an enroller. Now, it's really fascinating that there was a high percentage of enrollers among this group. But this is a really powerful modifier, and I'll come back to it and explain what it is, but I can tell you that if there's going to be people in this room, they're going to go, ah, wow, I feel like I just got released from jail. Or there's going to be women in this room that are going to go, that's what I did. So in genetic energetics, we have four lifestyle traits. The first one is communication. And this is really how we communicate with each other. It's our energetic relationship with each other more than anything else. There are two different forms of communication. One we call structural. This is someone that takes their words to mean exactly what they want to say. Or they take someone who's talking to them. If you say something to me, I'm going to take you literally. I'm structural communication style. So there are people that are are called figurative. A figurative talking style person is very emotive. And they really don't care a lot about the words. They might if they're in business and they're writing copy, but for the most part, they're just communicating. And it's a conveyance of an emotion. And I'll give you an example of this. I had a client, it was crazy. It was a lucky break for them, actually. They'd been together about 6 months, a little over 6 months. They were living together and they moved in with each other. One was figurative, the woman was figurative. The man was structural. And by the way, there's not, more women are this or more men are this in this system. And this is probably more gender, what do we call it, flattening? Gender neutral than anything I've ever worked with. And busts a lot of belief systems, especially when we get around sexuality, around genders, and men do this and women do that. Most of it's 50% inaccurate. So this particular couple, they've been together about 6 months, and they had this argument. They were having a heated argument in the front room of their house, and she finally says to him, she goes, "We're done. I'm through. This is over." Right? And she is like, she's a strong woman. He looks at her and goes, "Whoa." He walks down the hallway, and he goes in the bedroom, and he gets a suitcase out from the closet, and he starts to pack the bag with all his stuff. And he's packing, and about 5 minutes later, she comes in and goes, "What are you doing?" And he goes, "You said this is over, this is through. I'm leaving. I mean, you told me to leave." And she goes, "No, I just didn't want to argue anymore. That's all I was saying, I didn't want to argue anymore." And he's, in his mind, it was pretty clear what she said. So the lucky thing is that she came into the bedroom, because had she missed him, let's say 15 minutes went by, he grabbed his suitcase, he's out on the street calling his best friend going, "Damn, she kicked me out," right? And she's looking at an empty closet and going, "That son of a bitch walked out on me," right? So, yeah, so, what's the cure for that situation? They have two different communication styles. It's almost like they have two different languages. Right? So one is very figurative, they're just emoting. And the other one is taking the person literally. Now, we experience this in work, we experience this in our relationship with our kids, we definitely experience it in our romances. But there's other pieces to this too. And by the way, what's the solution here? It's really simple. If she said, we're through, I'm done, I just, can't talk about it. We're through, right? If he said to her, "I just need to make sure, are you asking me to leave?" And then, that's all, just to check in. He would have found out instantly that she just wanted space. She needed a connected timeout, right? And that would have been fine. But they didn't realize there was a difference there. They thought, well, we love each other, I'm speaking, you should be listening. or I'm listening to what you're saying. Seems pretty clear to me. But we've all been in situations where we thought we were super clear.
I've just been in some situations like that with close people, like family sometimes, and it's more about holding them accountable to their words. Like it's at a certain point for me, it's like if you're gonna say something, you need to own what you just said.
So this is a really great point. Now,
That was my mentality at the time, especially for like people who are older than me.
are you structural?
Yes.
Okay. So for you, the key there, to make them accountable for their words, you need to get clarity about whether the words they're using really mean what you think they mean. So you can't just hold them accountable to their words. Look, you have a friend who's coming over for dinner. And dinner's at 6 o'clock, and you get a call at 5 to 6, and they say, I'll be there in a bit. A bit. Okay? Is that, are you around the corner? Is that 5 minutes from now? Is that 30? Is that tomorrow? I don't know what a bit is, right? So all I have to do is say, so is that like, are you 5 minutes away? Are you 15, right? And they say 15, now we're good. Right? But for them, so a figurative talking style person says a bit, they know what a bit means. Right? There's no indication in their mind that you wouldn't understand that. So they're good. And it's us, the structural ones, that are going, oh, oh. And it's really fascinating. So I'm structural talking style, and I can watch two figurative talking style people like get into conversations with each other, and I just go, wow. What the hell are they talking about? But they clearly are having a communication, and it is awesome, right? And they're totally communicating with each other clearly. It's like, wow, how do they do it? And you know what? My daughter, she's figurative talking style, and I say something to her, and she goes, oh, Dad, you've said that so many times. Right? Can you say something different? You just sound like a broken record. I said, but I'm trying to make a point here. That's not working. I was like, what the hell? Yes.
I have to just say, when we were first connecting, one of the things that he told our friends is, I just don't know what she's saying. I don't understand what she's saying.
Like literally.
But now he understands for the most part.
A little bit. Kyra interprets.
Yeah.
So assuming you have different communication styles, I mean, it sounds like it, right? The key here, and this is the big piece, is that where do things get broken? Where does blame, shame, guilt, resentment show up? You didn't listen to me. I told you, you must not care about me. Right? You never tell me you love me. Yet you could be saying I love you all the time. I had two people sitting in my office, and their challenge was they didn't feel like either of them were communicating their love for each other. And I'm hearing one, I said, well, tell me, how do you express your love? And he says it, and I go, wow, I'm thinking to myself, that's really touching, that's cool. And then I ask her, how do you express your love? And she says it, and I go, well, that's really touching as well. And I went, do you guys hear that? And they didn't. And I'm going, how is it possible? Right? And so I sat there and I went, when you say this and this and this, what does that mean to you? And he explains it, and she goes, no way. Right? It's like, they've been together for a long time, and they still were not really hearing each other's expression of love. And so as they got to know it, understand it better, it's like they went from opposite ends to the sofa to like sitting next to each other. I had to kick them out. It was, it was that simple. And, we so quickly sometimes just assume that someone knows what we're talking about. And we can't do it. It's just not cool to do. I mean, it's not cool even if you have the same communication style. Simone and I have the same communication style. We rarely are going to have misunderstandings. We may have disagreements.
Oh, yeah.
We haven't yesterday. But rarely are we going to have misunderstandings. So if you have two different communication styles, you have the potential for a misunderstanding along with a disagreement, and so it could be elevated, and this is where you really need to drop into a different level of consciousness and love. Really, really, really get present so that you can be in what I would call an inquiry mode. Be in this place of absolutely wanting to understand where that person is coming from. And that requires the almost childlike curiosity. Right? So the one cool thing about children, right, is that when they're young and they start asking questions, they're like, whoa, do you ever stop asking questions? No, they don't. They're just curious as hell, right? And there's nothing wrong. They don't have like, no, you can't do that. That's incorrect. That no, people don't ask those questions. No, there's like, they don't hear all that. And so they come, this childlike mind, which is this insatiable curiosity, is with them. And they're very present for that. And they learn super fast. So there's people that believe that as we get older, we lose that. I think that's bullshit, honestly. I think what gets in the way is we bring all of our crap with us, and then when we ask questions, we're like consulting the Encyclopedia Britannica of our lives to see what the answer might be. But if we can like not have those books and just show up now, then you can look at someone, ask a question and go, I really want to know who you are. Right? Not because I want to fit a square peg into a round hole, because I'm just freaking curious. Right? And that's a really loving place. Because it's present. But we have to dispense with our belief systems that get in the way. So, understanding the communication style difference is important. Now, there's another part about communication style that's critically important to know. Anybody ever play with magnets when you were kids? When you push them together and they repulse each other? Okay? So, when you take a figurative communication style person and a structural communication style person and you hold space with each other, you're literally, the harmonics are pushing you apart. Okay? So, it's going to wear you down. There's an energetic drain that happens. So,
would you repeat that one more time? What that last little phrase there, one more time, please.
So, we have the energetics that we're looking at is a harmonic. It's a vibration, right? So, a best example I can use is like, think of tuning forks, right? When you hit a tuning fork, key of C, you rap it on your knee or something. If there's another tuning fork in the room, the key of C, what will it do? It'll start to vibrate, right? Any of the other tuning forks that are in different keys sit there as a piece of metal, but it'll vibrate. So when we're in the same harmonic, that vibration is really powerful. Okay? It's sensory. You can feel it. So the vibration between a figurative person and a structural person, they're different, and so they repel each other. And it doesn't mean you can't hold hands, it doesn't mean you can't love them, it doesn't mean any of that, but it does mean that you'll get worn down energetically if you spend all your time with each other. And here's a great example. Who has ever had a scenario, you had an experience where you met someone, first time, and it was an important meeting. You get together with them, and it's 10 or 15 minutes go by, and you find yourself you're listening, but you're kind of also looking around, you're distracted, you're yawning, you're feeling a little bit worn down, and you actually find yourself getting a little exhausted. Anybody have that experience? Yeah, we have a nickname for that. It's energy vampire, right? They're not energy vampires. It's two different communication styles. I went to a seminar with 15 people. It was a mastermind group a couple months ago, and I sat down, and there were two people on both sides of me, and 20 minutes into it, I went, oh, I can't be sitting here. I knew it, because I was wide awake earlier. And it was interesting, so I was curious. I ran the profiles of the people. The two people on both sides of me were figurative talking style. So I'm like getting bombarded by this, and all I did was move from this seat to over here, and I was fine. And not only was I fine, but the two girls ended up getting to sit next to each other who both figurative loved it. Right? So I was disrupting their energy flow, right? And they were disrupting mine. So there are a lot of couples that are together that have different communication styles. There's a reason for this. I'll explain that in just a little bit. What it means when that exists, though, let's take you to, we're going to make an assumption now just based on kind of what you said. There's a point where, as much as you love to be with each other, having your own space is really healthy. Yeah, I mean, did anybody notice how, certain that comment was? Yeah, totally, right? So, there's a reason why you're together, and it's a divine reason. So this information is to help you really experience the divinity of it in its fullness without going to a place like, God, you always exhaust me. Right? Which is like not a wonderful place to be with your partner.
Dating is like dating a stairmaster.
Yeah.
Is this like the love languages somewhere or no?
It's different.
Okay.
It definitely is different. It coincides. One of the things that genetic energetics does really well is it really dovetails with almost every profiling system we've worked with, which is really cool. So it's looking at energetics as opposed to, kind of more personality profiling. Love languages are more personality profiling because those could change over time. Genetic energetics does not ever change. It's literally like your blood type. All right, so here you are. You're together with someone, two different communication styles. You love them. So now you know that you're not intentionally trying to wear the person down. You want to be as resourceful as possible when you're with your partner. So call your best friend. Connect with someone, go out, find your space, get yourself energized again, and then be with your partner. And that's, it doesn't take a whole lot more than that. And how loving is that to do that? To just be aware of that. So there's more around communication style, and if I went into all of these, we would never make it through this morning. The next one on this list is called activity level. And that is the speed that we process information. It's also how we run our lives. So there's a moderate active person, and there's a super active person. How many people in this room have to stop yourself from finishing other people's sentences? Super active?
No.
No, you're not? Super active, super active, super active. So, part of it's kind of a bit of a psychic thing, but the other part is kind of just being ahead of them. Super active people usually pretty much know what someone's going to say before they're done saying it. Now imagine you have two different communication styles and one super active. And by the way, if I start talking fast like this, you're going to enjoy listening to me a lot more. If you're super active, you're going to go, thank God he sped up. Because it's so much easier to listen to him when he talks like this. Before he was just dragging. So I'm moderate active. I'm just fine just cruising along talking like this. But I know that doesn't work for everybody. And I also know that a super active person, from the time their head leaves the pillow in the morning until the time they go back to bed at night, they like to have their day planned out. They love it. As a matter of fact, when it's totally planned out,
I'm like, no.
you're not super active. No. So, and if it's totally planned out, they feel great. Their attitude, everything about them is wonderful. Depression. How does this happen? Most depressions that I encounter are with superactive people. You know what happens? They have a tragic thing happen in their life, and it stops them dead in their tracks. So everything that they normally do stops. It was either a relationship ended, or they lost a job, something, and they're like in this deep sorrow space, and they stop treating themselves like they normally do. And they feel depressed. Then they go to their doctor, and their doctor gives them antidepressants, which turn into more antidepressants. And it's a terrible downward spiral. So when I get with those people, I go, all right, I'm just going to ask you a few questions. For them, I want to know what you normally do in your day. What do you love to do? Right? And they'll tell me, and I go, okay, we're going to plan out the next 48 hours. Just plan it out. You don't have to stick with it. And by the way, downtime is also structured. Like, you know, someone can say, oh, I can't be super active. I love to meditate and walk on the beach, and, you know, do a lot of that and relax. And go, well, tell me about that. And they go, yeah, I meditate every morning at 9, and I do, you know, they have it all structured, right? So if we structure it in 48 hours, and I said, and here's the other piece, and you have to trust me on this, in the next 48 hours, you're not to take any of your medications. Like, none. 48 hours goes by, they follow the structure, they never pick up the medication. And they're not depressed. It's that quick. And so, what does this mean if we have a super active person in our that we're relating to? Simone's super active, I'm moderate active. I can drive her crazy because I like to think about things a bit before I make a decision.
That takes an hour longer to get into the car.
Now see, that's an exaggeration. That's an exaggeration.
Literally, an hour.
Don't worry, I have the same problem.
So what is my strategy? I try to be early so that I can say, I've been waiting 5 minutes. But understanding though that, you know, when she's on the move and she's planning things, that I need to give her space to do it. She says, I want to go for a walk and do this, do you want to come with me? You know, as a partner, yeah, I kind of want to walk and do that stuff with her all the time, but really what I want to do is just kind of chill. So I have to be willing to let her go do what she wants to do and not think that me chilling is saying that our relationship is weakened in any way. Because that's what happens, right? People believe that as partners we should want to do all the things we do together all the time. And we should get along really well when we do it all the time and love it just as much. No.
You know, it's interesting you say that because with Mara, I'm like, okay, I'm like prejudging her based on, I'm projecting onto her like, if I go and program for 2 hours at 11 o'clock to midnight, she's going to be, oh my gosh, you should be in bed with me. And she's like going, no. It's like, you need to do your own things.
Yeah. Yeah. It's great, right? So understanding that is really important. It's really important. You know, there is so much sense of humor, all these things, but super activity, moderate activity. Now, I'm moderate active, but moderate active people are sprinters, so we really throw people off sometimes. What that means is that it's like when I'm on task, you just, I get the fuck out of my way. It's like, here, this is what it's like. You're in the fast lane in the freeway, you're in the HOV lane, and there's someone driving a very slow Prius with 6 people in the car in front of you, right? And I'm going, oh, if I only had a big truck. I would just, you know, I have a place to go. You can move over. So I'll sprint, and I'll go really hard, and as soon as I'm done, then I just relax. And I don't really need to know what I'm going to be doing next. A super active person feels much better when they have a plan. The moderate active person doesn't necessarily need it. Okay? The next thing in this list is financial logic, and I'm going to pass over it for now. It's the one area in this, there is energy around finances that is really important to understand. And, you know, this report goes a little bit more into depth with it, and then we have a bigger report that goes into a great deal of depth with it. Just suffice it to say, there's some people that are what we call rainmakers. It's like money just shows up for them. They never seem to be really stressed about money. It's like, yeah. I mean, you know, I have rent's due tomorrow, and there's no food in the refrigerator, and I'm not sure where the money's going to come from, but it'll work out. Oh, and by the way, I just signed up for a $3,000 seminar. Right? And they're not worried about it because they wake up the next morning and they hear a knock at the door and someone left them a check for $6,000. You know? And non-conservative financial logic people go, yeah, it kind of happens that way. Right? And it does. They're rainmakers. So the conservative people have energy around money that can be really constraining. And if our partners are different, in our case we're different, I have to be really aware of that because I could put her rain out. You know, I could stop that rain from falling if I got all uppity and concerned about money all the time and brought that energy into the space. The next one is physical or sexual response type, and this is probably, of all of these different systems, this is the one that requires the most attention and the most dedication. So there's two different sexual response type. One is mental emotional and one is physical. Mental emotional person, their sexual energy is all on the surface. You can see it, you can feel it all the time. And the women in the room that are mental emotional, if I ask, the most common thing that I hear from them is that since they were little girls, anytime they even showed interest in someone, like talked to a guy and they were just curious about him. They didn't want a relationship, they didn't want anything, but they just asked questions. The guys all thought that she was flirting with them. And so they constantly had this issue where they were misunderstood. The result is they start to dress differently. They start to layer their clothing. They try to look not sexy. In a business environment, they'll wear business suits, anything like this, to kind of downplay the fact that this sexual energy thing is happening to them. It doesn't work. It doesn't make any difference. You could be out on a motorcycle, come in, be stinky, muddy, pull the goggles off from your eyes, and the only thing you see is the skin there, and the guys are going to go, she is hot. Right? And it works the same way with guys. So the mental emotional guys have an experience from the time they were young where women will respond to them almost pushing them off or wanting to instantly kind of put them into a friend zone thing before they even can have an encounter. And it makes a young boy really nervous and insecure about his ability to communicate with women, especially from a romantic level, because this sexual energy it's out there. We actually can cast people from movies based on whether that sexual energy is visible or not. So that's mental emotional. The mental emotional person, the prelude to sex is the most important thing. So, that's foreplay. And foreplay is emotional, it's being in the right mental state, it's feeling connected. It's not a physical foreplay, it's an emotional foreplay. This prelude is critically important for a mental emotional person. Now the physical sexual response type person, whether they're male or female, doesn't matter. If I say to them, and this is like the first time I said this to a woman years and years ago, she so threw me off. I'd never heard her say any, swear, nothing. She had the cleanest mouth of anybody I'd ever talked to. And I'm describing this, and I'm going, I'm telling her about mental emotion. She says, well, I like that. I like the music and the candles and the romance and all that stuff. And I went, yeah, I know you like it, but do you need it? And she goes, no, just fuck me. Right? I went, what? So, that was the conversation. No, now's the time. And so a physical sexual response type person, when they're hot, they're hot. And their sexual energy is all held inside for the partner to pull it out. And this is where the difficulty can come in. This is where we see the biggest challenges in relationships when there's two different sexual response types. The two need to go beyond what, I don't even want to say normal sex. Our sexual education in this world, in this country, is so back-assward and non-existent that, it's hard to call it normal. But what it does mean is that if you're partners and you're with someone that has a different sexual response type, immediately I'd say, get into a tantra class, learn how to move energy, get some coaching and some work with people so that you can connect deeper. Because the physical sexual response type person, if their sexual energy does not release, what you end up seeing is someone that was a very vibrant rose start to kind of dull down. They need that energy to release. The mental emotional person doesn't have any problem with it. Our sexual energy is always out there. The physical person needs to be able to release it. And, and how important is our sexual energy? crucial, right? Mother Teresa, when she was interviewed before she died, they said, how do you manage to do everything you do? She says, I move sexual energy. She didn't have to have sex to move sexual energy, but she understood how important that was to move it through her body. Everything about us, our creativity, our resourcefulness, our ability to co-create, all of those things require, among a lot of other stuff, but they require movement and expression of our sexual energy. It doesn't have to be for sex, but that energy needs to move. And so this is an area here that's really, really important. And it's also an area that busts a lot of myths around men and women. Like there's the belief that guys, it's hard. Let's do it, right? Says you're ready to go. Seems like, let's go. And it doesn't work that way. It's not that way. Half the guys, yes, the other half, no. So for a mental emotional guy, it doesn't mean he can't have a quickie in the back of the car or just, immediately drop into sex with his partner. But it doesn't mean that it won't sustain that person over time. So I'll give you an example of what this can look like. I dated a gal for a while who is physical sexual response type. I'm mental emotional. So she's at work, and while she's at work, I'm making dinner. I got this cool dinner all planned. I put music on, I've got candles lit, I went and got some flowers. So I'm doing all my own emotional foreplay. Right? I got it all set up. Everything's great. The house feels good. Dinner's ready. Smells wonderful. This is romantic. It's I'm turned on. I'm ready. She comes home and I tell her, and she comes home. I go, are you hungry? Because dinner's ready. And she looks at me and goes, oh, I'm hungry. She wasn't talking about food. She wanted me, right? So fortunately I understood this. Because what I said to her is, cool. So we went in the bedroom, we played for a while, we came out, we ate leftovers. Right? But here's what actually happens most of the time. Instead, had I not understood it, I could have easily said, well, dinner's ready, let's have dinner, and then we'll play later. And it would have been like I had taken out a fire extinguisher and put out her flame. Because remember, a physical sexual response type person, when they're hot, they're hot. And if you're a partner and you miss that, at an other than conscious level, their body's saying, they didn't get me. They missed it. They missed the cue. Right? And that works maybe once, maybe twice. But this is what happens other than consciously that, they go, well, I'm not going to express myself because every time I do, it just, doesn't happen. So they shut down. And the most common thing I hear from couples that have this mismatch and don't know what to do with it is the mental emotional person will tell me that their physical sexual response type person is they just lay on the bed. I don't know what to do to excite them. So we have to do a reset on that one, right? Because there's conditioning that's happened. Once the reset's done, then you start meeting at a different than just your basic, I love you, let's make love type thing. You start learning how to move sexual energy, how to exchange energy, solar touch, eye gazing, breathing together, different techniques that will help let that physical person's sexual energy start to emerge and express and explode. Critically important. It's why we have people that go into a relationship at the beginning, it's awesome, and then over time sex changes a little bit, right? It's not because they're doing the same thing all the time. There might be some of that. We need to keep some excitement in our sexual engagement, but most often it's a mismatched sexual response type. So what I don't want you guys to do is worry about this. What I do want you to do is step into an area that I'm going to go to next, which is courageous intimacy. So there's a couple other things that these reports talk about. One is chemistry. It's really why a lot of people get together that have different communication styles. Because for you two, was there a lot of chemistry when you first met? No, it's okay. This is okay. Really, thank you for your honesty.
Well, we were friends for a while.
Yeah.
Okay.
There was chemistry as far as like getting along, but it wasn't like.
So it's going to be interesting. Now, you guys are two different communication styles, right?
Yeah, but we had an instant connection. You said I love you that first night.
That's awesome. So was there chemistry? By chemistry, I mean like, you know, you take off these and you put on a pair of rose-colored glasses and you just go, you know, it's that
It takes
that
a couple- It
infatuation.
took about 3 months to really see everything within, you know, but I mean,
So
it was definitely instant connection.
okay, so it took some time though to really build that
As
up,
it does
right?
with everybody, you know, I mean, just to get to the internal parts, you know, and like the intentions and, you know, who are you really, you know, not just what am I seeing right now,
Mm-hmm.
you know, what am I hearing, what am I seeing, who are you really?
Cool, very cool. Thank you for sharing that. So chemistry for a lot of us, chemistry by the way is 6 brain chemicals. Oxytocin, dopamine, norepinephrine, testosterone, PEA, what am I missing? Oxytocin. So these neurochemicals, neurotransmitters all get elevated. And when they're elevated, we don't make the best decisions. We don't. I mean, we're really not in the, you know, the most controlled state of mind. So Simone and I both have what's called true attraction. So there's chemistry here. And, you know, the best example I can tell you is that one night she calls me up. I'm going to see her the next morning, like at 7 a.m. And I live 30 minutes away. And she calls me up. And it's like 11 o'clock. And she says, why don't you come over? It's not for sex or anything. Just come over, you know, just so we can sleep together. And, you know, it's almost like I'm drugged. I grab the keys. I go get in the car. I start the car. I'm driving to her place going, why am I doing this? You know, I'm going to see her in the morning, you know. We know we love each other. Why? And I'm still driving. Right? I'm literally drugged up. And then I just start laughing because I know that's what's going on. It's just like, okay, yeah, all those brain chemicals are just skyrocketing right now. So chemistry has us make decisions about who we want to be with. And by the way, chemistry is not all romance. We make decisions about who we want to work with, who we will hire. We even make decisions about which of our children we connect with closer based on chemistry. So understanding the chemistry is really, really important. And this is why I was asking for the opposite gender biological parent.
I feel like, yes, there was chemistry, it wasn't romantic chemistry.
So it'll be interesting to see. One of the coolest things when, and see, you guys are, here's an example. These two, so here's an example. These two both have what's called false attractions. Okay? So with false attractions, the chemistry is with someone that is the opposite communication style. So you see her, she sees you, and you go, yeah, right? And all these neurochemicals are all elevated. That's what's driving that connection at the beginning. And chemistry can sit here and drive that for years and years and years till the end of your life.
What else could there be other than that, though, in the beginning?
There are
You know what I'm saying, like, from that initial, before, you know.
there are people that get into relationships. I don't know if this is your case, but one couple that I remember interviewing, they both had false attractions, and they were really well matched energetically. Right? So usually when there's a close energetic match, there's a deep connection there. So they had been working with each other. I asked them, you know, how did you guys meet? They said, well, we worked with each other for about a year and a half, and we go every morning to Starbucks for coffee. And one day she reached across the table, grabbed my hand, and I never let go. But it was like a year and a half, right? And they were the closest friends because they just got to know each other and love each other so much. There was no chemistry, right? But there was a different kind of connection that was energetic based on the match they had there. So you guys are very different energetically, but you have this chemical mix that provides, you know, this wonderful concoction of brain chemicals that is fun for you guys to play with. You know, so you know it, right? Yeah. So that's a
We had
great concoction.
brainstorming sessions when we first would hang out up to like when the birds were chirping, we'd be sitting by our computers and just throwing ideas back and forth. I mean, this was right in the beginning, and you know,
Till 5 in the morning.
Yeah, that's awesome.
it was hard to even go to sleep, and you know, but you know, it was
Yeah, and
what it was.
and if you could get away from each other and sit back and just feel into your body, you'd be going, whoa, I'm kind of tingling here, right?
Yeah.
And that's what it is. So when those brain chemicals are all pumping, they go through the roof, you can feel it. And it's like, oh, this is cool. I like this. So I mean, that's where chemistry really can be a bit of a double-edged sword. It's good to know about it. It's really important when it comes to making decisions, especially in a business environment. You know, we have executives that'll come to us that won't decide. I mean, that have false attractions, and will say, will you run the profiles on these people and let us know which one? Because they know every time they make a decision, they decide wrong. So they hire an executive assistant that doesn't have the same communication style. That's problematic. That's too much work, right? It's a lot of extra work. It's not that it can't be done, but it's a lot of extra work. And if you don't need to do it, then, you know, why? All right, there are 5 modifiers in this system, and some people have none. I think you have none. So some people have none, and some people have multiple. Some people have up to 4 modifiers. That is a really complex person. In fact, a lot of folks will say, you know, what you hear is, oh, that's multiple personality disorder. It's not a disorder, but it is multiple personalities for sure. So each of these modifiers has very specific attributes, and they are powerful. They're really powerful. There's a perfectionist in the room here someplace. Okay. Perfectionist, I'm a perfectionist as well. And Simone and I were talking yesterday because we were talking about what would be a good example of courageous intimacy. And that came up, and one of the pieces behind a perfectionist is from an early age, we just don't ever feel good enough. So Deepika, if you're looking over there, she's shaking her head. Yeah. So what do we do as kids? What I did is I made sure I knew as much as I could about everything, because I never wanted to be in a situation where I couldn't contribute in one way or another. So I looked like a jack of all trades, right? I just never wanted to be in any room where I couldn't somehow contribute, otherwise I would feel unworthy. Right?
Or know-it-all.
Huh?
Or know-it-all.
I didn't want to be a know-it-all, right? That was that was the other piece, you know. It's like know-it-alls weren't. That didn't sound good, but so it was like a hidden know-it-all. Okay, it was weird. But there's a piece there which is like we can be really concerned about putting ourselves out because we don't want to be in a position where we're not really contributing. So that's a perfectionist. There's a lot more to that. Enrollers. Who here, you're an enroller, you're an enroller, you're an enroller. I don't know what women enrollers, sometimes you can tell an enroller if they have a very square jawline. You may be an enroller. So an enroller is someone who's extremely creative. Anybody remember Soap on a Rope? I said this to you, you didn't remember it because you were too young. Soap on a Rope was this stupid ass idea where someone took a piece of soap and they put it on a rope and they sold millions of them for like 2 years, right? But it was like, and everybody, you know, go, God, I wish I thought of that idea, right? So enrollers come up with stuff like that all the time. We're constantly creating stuff, but we love to create and don't necessarily like to implement. Okay? So it's like, yeah, I'm going to build this business. You know, this, for me, when I first found this information and I was told I had this enroller modifier, it was the most important piece of information I got because up till then, I really believed that I was a failure in business. I had owned a restaurant, I had helped launch companies, I'd done so many different things. And what ended up happening, I'd have people go, well, what happened to your successful restaurant? I go, I don't know. What happened is I got bored, right? So I built something, and after it was built, I didn't want to just do the same thing day in, every day. So I wanted, and some people love that. They just love to execute and make things happen. God bless them, right? But so I put myself in positions where I thought that's what I was supposed to do, and then every time I moved on to another business, after a while, it seemed to me when I look back on it that, wow, you just can't keep a business going. So it was like, this is energetic. I just need to know how to do this differently. So enrollers need a back office. If you're operating without a team,
So what happens if you're an enroller and a perfectionist at the same time?
and I am.
Yeah.
And you're like walking to the back office like,
Yes.
no, the blueprint says this.
So the cure for it's really interesting. I know. So the cure for a perfectionist is to surround yourself with really, really talented people. And the cool thing about enrollers, like the best analogy I can give you for enrollers, they are, and it's why we use this term. Imagine you're the conductor for the New York Philharmonic, right? So it's your responsibility to hire everybody that's going to be in that orchestra. So you go out and you find the best string instrument players, you find the best percussionists, you find the best flutes and best, wind instrument players. You're looking for the absolute best you can find. Because you know if you pull all these talented people together and you make it possible for them to shine, that what will come out of it is something that's way bigger than you could ever do on your own. Okay? And the cool thing is that people that come to work for enrollers, like they do a conductor in an orchestra, they love working for a person. So you watch the conductor in an orchestra pull up those batons and all eyes are on them, right? The sound, and what comes out of it is this beautiful orchestration. So that's what enrollers are capable of doing. But they need, where they really excel is when they have groups of people that they can direct. So they go to look for the best talent that they can find. Perfectionists, if they look for the best talent, they understand that the best talent's going to exceed what they can do on their own. That's the trick. So women enrollers, here's the challenge. Enrollers are also very competitive. And women enrollers are like a man in a woman's body.
What?
Okay? And most of them are tomboys. They'll tell you when they grew up they didn't like playing with dolls much. Okay? That they had a lot of guy friends. They beat up a lot of their guy friends. Right? That was their upbringing. They compete in a man's world and win 100% of the time. And so what ends up happening with enroller women, and they don't realize it, is they emasculate their men. They're the largest population of single women over 40. Because they just don't realize that, the man will say, let me do that. And they'll go, no, I got it. Right? He says, I'll fix that. She says, I can do it. I'm going to go load the car. Let me load it. Right? It's like, let the guy do it. But and it's really subtle. They don't mean to emasculate the men, but they do. And what ends up happening is a really beautiful relationship starts to kind of dwindle and fizzle out there because they don't feel like man doesn't feel like he's needed. So he withdraws. And he doesn't know why he's withdrawing. Right? So what's happening? He's got a belief system that she doesn't need me, right? And that she doesn't want me. The belief system that she doesn't want me. She doesn't need him. But she gets the message now that she doesn't want me because every time I try to do something, she wants to do it herself. Right? So there's that withdrawal. It's not true. Right? It's not true. So this is where our beliefs now intrude upon the present and love is not there. Right? So the love dissipates because there's a belief system that's telling us something that's not true. We don't have to be dealing with genetic energetics to have that problem. Yes.
So like the thought that comes to my mind, because you're like blowing some synapses open for me right now. And so here, I'm this enroller and this perfectionist, and all of the people that I get to come to work for me are all broken and deeply flawed, and somehow I think I'm gonna fix them so that they can be the people that I need in my systems and in my relationships, at work. And I'm like, yeah, I'm like, so I mean, I need this orchestra of people that can go way bigger than what I can even imagine. And I'm going, I need to find people at the very bottom and like bring them up so they can be these people.
No, you need to change your selection criteria immediately. You really do. I understand that because I used to do that too. And what brought me down to California is I was partners with Tony Robbins. And I built a lot of his training programs early, back in the 90s.
You know Vampire Dixie?
Yeah.
I do a website for her.
Yeah. So what was really an eye-opener for me is that I was involved in getting ready to reshoot all of his video programs. And what I did is I went out and I went, who's the best? Who's the absolute best? His standards were so high when I can't risk not dealing with what would be best, right? And then when I brought all the best in and started working together, I went, wow, this is really cool. This is like bigger than I thought. And as an enroller, all I had to do was hold the image of what it could be, and the talent would drive it up beyond that. You got it? You hold that vision, and then you bring in the people and make it possible for them to excel. That's it. All right, courageous intimacy.
Do you want to say anything about no modifiers?
No modifiers means that you're not genetically driven by any of the characteristic definitions. You can emulate any of them. So there are times when you could be a perfectionist, when you could act like an enroller, but it's not in your blood type that's forcing you into that. As a perfectionist, I have to deal with that. As an enroller, you have to deal with that. But and I have to be able to mitigate what could be a challenge around it. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So, question. How are we doing? You guys, time-wise, we're all right?
Yeah.
Okay. Intimacy. Intimacy. What does it mean? What's it mean to you? Anybody?
Sharing energetic space in a certain way. I don't know what that certain is though. I can't see the word right now.
Okay. What's the feeling around it?
Maybe it's like a cellular recognition.
How's that? What's that feel like in your body?
It's I don't know, it almost feels like there's this tingling and this openness. It feels like warm.
Warm. Are you drawn towards it?
Yeah.
Does it scare you sometimes?
Not typically. No. I'm usually stoked when that happens.
Nice. I like it. Anybody else? Yes.
I'd say vulnerability and trust, and it's terrifying.
Okay. Good. Thank you for that. That's true for most people. Anybody else?
I would say it's a space that you mindfully, with your heart as well, try to create for understanding and compassion.
Mindful of your heart? Your own
No,
heart?
that you're just mindfully creating a container for
Okay.
that compassion and understanding to not just happen, but maybe even evolve.
Maybe what?
To maybe even evolve.
Evolve. Okay, cool. Nice.
It's a
Yes.
safe exploration of all the senses that you can experience with someone.
Safe exploration of your
A
senses
various
also.
spectrum of vastness of senses.
Oh, nice. True.
For me, it's allowing the other to see me, and see inside of me.
Yeah. Allowing yourself to be seen. Right? I think that's one of the, thank you for bringing that up. I think it's really one of the most important things for any of us is that when it gets right down to us, we really want to be seen, right? And, when you meet someone, we want to be seen and we want to see them, right? That environment without being projected on, right? Yeah. Anything else?
Kind of the word private keeps coming up for me. Like I wouldn't be sitting here unless I was just having to sit down and fall asleep on me. Because even courageous intimacy, those words put together is like it resounds very strongly for me. And I want to hide from it and I want to be private, in that way.
Mm-hmm. Thank you for that. Yeah. I think that intimacy. Intimacy technically. Is there anybody else that wants to?
Yeah. Even the word itself, it sounds a lot like intimacy.
Uh-huh.
And for me, it's reciprocal seeing and being seen.
Yeah. Yeah. There's like into you I see, into me I see. Right. Yeah. For sure. So the psychologists in the world have come up with 7 different levels of intimacy. And, the level 1 is kind of like, hi, nice to meet you, right? And that was it. I mean, we shook hands, right? That's level 1 intimacy. And the next one is like maybe spend a few moments more and actually have eye contact, right? Because the other one, I don't even look at, it's like, who knows? And then it goes up and up and up. And at the 7th level of intimacy, which is really what I want to talk about here today, it's that place where vulnerability, you are as vulnerable as you could possibly be. Where everything you believe and know and understand could be questioned, can be looked at, can be seen. Where you're willing to expose yourself completely to someone. Realizing that in that moment, there's really an opportunity to get super excited instead of scared shitless. And actually, you can be scared shitless and super excited at the same time. But what comes out of it at that point, when you're willing to allow yourself to be completely seen, right? When you're willing to have everything that you believe about yourself examined, and you'll still put it out there. That's the courage. That's the piece where when you're willing to ask someone for something, you can't wait, can you?
Well, I just wanted to share something because you said whether you're excited or afraid. And I just heard recently that, I think it was Will Smith, he was talking about skydiving or something. He was like,
The same thing.
Yeah, he was like, well, I noticed, what were my sensations? My heart was beating really fast, I was sweating, I was da-da-da. And he's like, I said that was fear. But then when I'm excited, what happens? My heart races really fast, I'm sweating. So he's like, well, is it just my story around what I'm calling it?
Mm-hmm.
Or is it actually that thing? So that was really, turned it for me.
Yeah, it's great. It's great. So courageous intimacy, what makes it possible is when 2 people are willing to be completely vulnerable with each other. Like, whatever it is that you've held on to for however many years of your life, it's like, I'll show you.
No problem.
Yeah. You see, that's,
Normally that.
normally it had been, but not here,
It was
right?
suddenly okay.
Yeah. In this relationship, after many experiences, many tests beforehand, right? There's a level of intimacy that I wanted to get to, but I never ever reached until I met Simone. And here's the interesting thing about intimacy, by the way. Intimacy is only as deep as the lowest common denominator. So if one person is going, man, my heart's on my sleeve, you can ask me any question, I will tell you anything. There's no secrets here. But the other person is going, well, I got secrets. Yeah, I'll ask you questions, but they don't they're not reciprocating. Your level of intimacy is only as high as that lowest common denominator. And some of us find ourselves very disappointed trying to communicate with someone, when we really want to go deep in conversation, but they're not willing or ready to. Why aren't they willing and ready to?
Well,
It hurt.
What's that?
well, it could be that you can feel that there's something in the closet that you don't want. They don't want it to come out, and you don't want it to come out, because if it comes out, you're like, whoa. I didn't want that to come out. Put that back in.
They've been held hostage for what they said before.
Lots of reasons. Held hostage. Oh, it's a surprise. That's more than I want to step into right now.
Fear.
Fear. Huge fear. Resentment. Somewhere is alive for them. Blame. Shame. So resentment, blame, shame, and guilt are the four big items that get in the way of us really diving into being courageously intimate. If you're blaming anybody, Matt Kahn, by the way, I'm not a big Matt Kahn lover, but he just did a thing recently on blame. And I have to say that there was more profound stuff in that than I usually give him credit for. It was good. And, it was basically, he's saying, look at it, if you cannot blame anybody for anything, like not blame them. Like the people in the Prius with 6 people in the car in the fast lane, oh, that's okay. I love you. I'll just go around, It's a different world if you can pull the blame out, right? So blame, shame, guilt, resentment, fears, all of those driven fears, that's going to get in the way of you becoming deeply intimate with anybody. But here's the fun part. This is the really, 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 really fun part. Is that if you can step into a place of being fully intimate, being willing to share at any level, being willing to take everything you believe about yourself, everything you love about yourself, and have someone give you feedback that changes your knowing. And be excited that there's an opportunity to emerge and grow out of that. That at that point in time, that's where co-creation and serendipity and bliss just goes, right? Because we've all experienced it. When are you creative? It's in that moment. It's in that moment when you're really excited about something and you've released all your fears and bam, something happens, right? Your best writing, your best expression, your best connection. All of those things happen in this precious present. So the key here is to get excited, like really super excited about what can happen when we hold this space and we let go of anything that we thought was broken. And there's an opportunity there too, because when we go to let go of those things that might have been some trauma in the past, could have been some form of abuse, could have been anything, that if we feel those are still hanging in there, that it's right there in front of us saying, I'm ready, I'm ready. If you want, we can let this go. We can change the context around this and turn it into something that indeed happened, but does not need to intrude upon my life right now, or my ability to love right now. Yesterday, Simone and I were sitting out in the hot tub after I had been sick the day before, and unbeknownst to me, I just wasn't aware to it. I really had not consumed much water at all. I was severely dehydrated. And we were talking about this subject, intimacy. She said, so what's the most scary thing for you? And I said, having something to share that people don't see any value in, you know. And the other thing was abandoning things, you know, just not necessarily abandoning, but not being fully driven to execute on things that I want to do. And after 30 minutes, we get out of the hot tub and we walk into the heated shower room. And I sit down in there and go, I felt really dizzy. And I haven't really felt dizziness like that before. And the last thing I remembered was saying I'm dizzy. And then the next thing I hear is my name being called and a breath of air being shot into my mouth. And this woman I love is in tears. And scared shitless. Because she watched me convulse and my eyes dilate and go and turn blue. And then all of a sudden I was fine. It's like when I heard my voice or my name and that air into my mouth, I went, wow, I feel great again. I just like doing tree pose inside the shower room. You know, it's like all of a sudden I feel great, but that was not going to cut it. So the part of me that wants to be like a perfect human being is going, I'm fine. I'm fine. Right? I'm fine, I'm healthy. We don't need to go see a doctor. I'm fine. I won't do it again. I just need to drink water. And the result was we ended up going to the ER and spent 8 wonderful hours there. Wow, it's just a treat. I'm being facetious. To find out I had a really great, I mean, it was like, oh, your blood type's awesome. Your CAT scan's awesome. There's like, you're great, you know, everything's fine. But there was a part of me, you know, when I think about it, it's like, I went there because it was important for Simone. But there was a part of me that also was like, I'm a little scared. Because I don't really want to discover something that maybe I don't want to know.
Hello.
Yeah. And this is the piece that required massive courage. And it has up-leveled my beliefs about our ability to accomplish anything. I felt an expression, a new level of love that I hadn't felt before. And had I clammed up and went, I'm fine, I'm just fine, everything's fine, I'm sorry, I should have drank water, you know, I screwed up. That would have been a travesty. As it is now, I feel like I feel like I've got a second life out of this thing. And what's really interesting, something that came up is like, I think, I don't remember when we talked about it, but so the most driven people I know, the most driven people I've ever met are ones that have died and are still alive. Like something happened to them where they flatlined and they came back and went, fuck, I'm alive. I'm not going to waste it. It's like there's a drive there that is crazy. And I went, well, I didn't plan to try and do that like that, but there's an incentive there to make things happen. And I guess I'm sharing that now because it's just my way of stepping into a level of intimacy that is only going to go as high as you guys are willing to hear, right? But from my perspective, it's all I got, right? It's everything I got. I really invite you to look at whatever stories you have that are holding you back from being present and letting them go. Most of the time, they're not even yours. Great exercise for you. I'll share this. It's a great exercise. You're upset about something. I'm just pissed off. I'm upset. I'm angry. Whatever it is, pick whatever you can recall, right? And when you're in that emotional upset, you go, what do I have to believe? This is the question. What do I have to believe to feel this way right now? What do I have to believe to be upset at that person? What do I have to believe to think I'm not good enough? What do I have to believe to think that I can't connect with my child or my father or my parent or my friend? What do I have to believe to hold on to this emotion that's consuming and overrunning my life right now? And get the answer. You know, don't let yourself free from that. Like, let whatever comes up, come up. And then as soon as that belief comes up, whatever you think it is, the next question is, whose belief is that? Is that mine? Or does that belong to someone else? Like, did I pick that up off of a commercial saying I should be wearing tight jeans? You know? Is it because when I was raised, I was told that I'm supposed to be the breadwinner in the family? That wasn't my belief. I didn't have it when I was a little kid. Got it from my dad. You know? Ask yourself, whose belief is it? And if it's not yours, and you don't want it, give it back. Give it back. And you really can. I mean, I think about the stuff that my dad gave me. Holy shit. I've given almost all of it back. And he's passed now. I mean, I gave something back a year ago. He's been passed for 5 years. I don't care whether he's on this planet or not. It's like, thanks, Dad. I know you meant your best by giving this to me. You did the best you could with whatever resources you had, but I don't want it. So when your emotions take you over, look into the beliefs that cause those emotions to be. And if they're not yours and you don't want them, give them back to whoever gave them to you. Graciously, with gratitude. Just give them back. And sometimes, by the way, you give one belief back and you go, I'm still pissed off. So it's another belief. So you can go deep with this, right? Because we stack these things. We definitely stack them. We're too complicated to just go for one, usually. Right? But you give them all back. And you allow yourself in that process, if you give them all back and let them go, and I really mean with gratitude, and then back, then you get to show up in the present. And I'm going to finish with the gratitude piece because gratitude to me, in its truest form, has got the same vibration in it as one other thing. What do you suppose that is? Love. Yeah. So, as kind of a closing exercise, I want you to think of something you're really grateful for. And close your eyes. And just, it can be more than one thing if you want, but pick one or a couple things that you're really grateful for. We're leaving 2017 this evening, moving into a new year. Think about what that is. You got it. What I want you to do now is bring it into your heart. Get it out of your head and bring it down into your heart. When it's in your heart, I want you to let it expand and fill your entire body. Gratitude's so huge that it just overflows. There's no part of your physical form that is not feeling that gratitude. And I want you to let it explode out among all the people in this room. And that's where you get to play all day. I love you guys. Thank you.
Thank you.
So where's that test?
So there's on the webpage, there's so I'll tell you a little bit about my accessibility. So on the Facebook page for this event, I posted a link to the test, right? So you can go there. It takes you to the 4 Answers website. The 4 Answers is my website for genetic energetics. And the test is called a personal energetic profile. It's a free profile, so you can run it on yourself, on your kids. And definitely, like around kids, I have 3. It's been hugely powerful. In the case of my daughter, we stopped bullying in her school using this information. It was really powerful. So, I mean, and by the way, I'm open to conversation, communication. I'm totally accessible. The profile is a free profile. There's what's called an energetic romance report that's anywhere from 40 to 90 pages long. It goes into detail about couples. And then I do a lot of work with couples. It's like my favorite place to be now is I love working with committed couples. It's just cool. It's to me, the opportunity to up-level. Stepping into courageous intimacy is an opportunity to up-level to a point where it doesn't even matter where the relationship goes. It goes with such grace and ease that there's so much beauty and appreciation and gratitude around it that it's going the right direction. So that work is helpful. So that's it.
Thank you so
You're welcome. You're welcome. Yeah, if you want to, I don't know what the timing is now. Is there a lunch? What's next?
We went an hour and 37 minutes, so do you want to do any questions?
Yeah, I'm willing to sit here and take questions, and if any people want to ask, there's.
12:10 now.
12:10. Has the bell rung?
Yeah.
My father's birthday,
Uh-huh.
and then he is his mother.
It's his mother, so it's the opposite gender biological parent.
Okay.
And some people don't even have that information, by the way. I mean, there's Yuko here who doesn't even, she doesn't know her father's real birthday. So in that situation, there's another way to ascertain whether you have true or false attractions, just some questioning. And we get it. Yeah, just the true and false attractions is the only thing that is affected by the opposite gender parent's birthday. Everything else in the profile is the same. Any other questions? What do you want to know? I'm an open book.
I have a question about, have you heard of, I forgot the name, but it's kind of like 23andMe or genetic testing?
Yes. Yeah, they call it chemistry. It's their own form of a genetic test, and they have a belief behind it that if certain things are aligned, that will make for a perfect relationship, kind of thing. So here's the challenge I have with that. That's where I started with this almost 12 years ago. I got involved with this company because they wanted to enter the dating world, and their statement was, if you're a perfect match, then you're going to have an incredible relationship, and if you're not a perfect match, it's going to be a hellstorm and it won't last. And then scientifically, we went out, we had a group of outside scientists came in and tested our system and proved that that was true. Okay? But the challenge with scientific testing is that, you know, there's lots of other variables around that, right? And so no science is really very accurate. So we were able to prove that chemistry, which is only supposed to last 2 years, can last a lifetime. And the reason why that science was proven wrong is that they weren't looking at genetic energetics as part of the subsets, right? So where I'm going with all this is that when we focus in on trying to find the perfect match, the perfect genetic match, we exclude ourselves from all kinds of experiences. And that's just not fair. You know, I really do believe that every person shows up in our life exactly when they're supposed to, as they're supposed to, and they show up for a reason and a purpose. And if there's a powerful connection, by God, go find out what it is. You know, and don't go, oh, you're not genetically correct, I can't talk to you. No, that's like, it's like, it's beyond unconscious. And so that's why I bought this company 6 years ago, because I wanted to take it out of the dating world and into just using this material as a way to understand each other. And didn't want it to be used as a matchmaking tool. Because it just had too many ill fates from that. What's that?
I just want to interject by saying that the Acro Jam is supposed to be next, so maybe we can move, if people have more comments and questions.
Oh,
we could
cool.
probably move into the next space over here. Right?
Little dry.
Oh, it's a coconut water.